Chapter 54. For the second time in my life, I understood what it felt like to be a victim of a terrible crime, rather than the detective investigating it. I was disconnected and out of it. I needed to be doing something positive on a case, or get back to volunteer work at St. Anthony's. Anything to take my mind off of what had happened. I had to be busy, but I knew I'd lost my ability to concentrate, something that had always come so naturally to me. I came across a pair of shocking murders in Maryland that bothered me for some unspecified reason. I didn't follow up on them. I should have. I wasn't myself. I was lost. I still spent endless hours thinking about Christine, remembering everything about our time together, seeing her face wherever I went. Sampson tried to push me. He did push me. He and I made the rounds of the streets of Southeast. We put the word out that we were looking for a purple and blue cab, possibly gypsy. We canvassed door to door in the Shaw neighborhood where Tori Glover and Marion Cardinal had been found. Often we were still going at 10 or 11 at night. I didn't care. I couldn't sleep anyway. Sampson cared. He was my friend. You're supposed to be working the Odenkirk case, right? I'm not supposed to be working at all. The Jefe would be livid. I kind of like that, Sampson said, as we trudged along S Street late one evening. Sampson had lived in this neighborhood for years. He knew all the local hangouts. Jamal, you know anything I should know? He called out to a goateed youth sitting in shadows on a gray stone stoop. Don't know nothing. Just relax my mind. Catching a cool night breeze. How about yourself? Sampson turned back to me. Damn, crack runners working these streets everywhere you look nowadays. Real good place to commit a murder and never get caught. You talked to the police in Bermuda lately? I nodded and my eyes stared at a fixed point up ahead. Patrick Busby said the story of Christine's disappearance is off the front pages. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's probably bad. Sampson agreed. Takes the pressure off them. You going back down there? Not right away, but yeah, I have to go back. I have to find out what happened. He looked me in the eye. Are you here with me right now? Are you here, sugar? Yeah, I'm here most of the time. I'm functioning okay. I pointed up at a nearby red brick building. That place would have a view of the front entryway into the girls' building. Any of those windows. Let's get back to work. Sampson nodded. I'm here as long as you want me to be. I'm here as long as you want to be. There was something about pounding the streets that appealed to me that night. We talked to everyone in the building that we could find at home, about half the apartments. Nobody had seen a purple and blue cab on the street. Nobody had seen Tori or Marianne either, so they said. You see any connections anywhere? I asked as we came down the steep stairs of a fourth-floor walk-up. What do you see? What the hell am I missing? Not a thing, Alex. Nothing to miss. Weasel didn't leave a clue. Never does. We got back down to the entrance and met up with an elderly man carrying 3 clear plastic bags of groceries from the Stop and Shop. We're homicide detectives, I said to him. 2 young girls were murdered across the street. The man nodded. Tori and Marianne. I know them. You want to know about that fella watching the building? He was sitting there most of the night inside a slick, fancy black car, he said. Mercedes, I think. You think maybe he's the killer? Chapter 55. I've been away a while, you see, visiting with my 2 old bat sisters in North Carolina for a week of good memories, home-cooked food, the elderly man said as we went up to the 4th floor. That was why I was missed during the earlier time through here by your detectives. This was old school police work, I was thinking as I climbed the stairs. The kind of work too many detectives try to avoid. The man's name was DeWitt Luke, and he was retired from Bell Atlantic, the huge phone company that services most of the Northeast. He was the 53rd interview I'd had so far in Shaw. Saw him sitting there around 1 in the morning. Didn't think much of it at first. Probably waiting for somebody. Seemed to be minding his own business. He was still there at 2, though, sitting in his car. Seemed kind of strange to me. He paused for a moment as if trying to remember. Then, what happened? I prompted the man. Fell asleep. But I got up to pee around 3:30. He was still in that shiny black car. So I watched him closer this time. He was watching the other side of the street, like some kind of damn spy or something. Couldn't tell what he was looking at, but he was studying something real hard over there. I thought he might be the police, except his car was too nice. You got that right, Sampson said and barked out a laugh. No Mercedes in my garage. I pulled up a card table chair behind the darkened window in my apartment, made sure there were no lights on so he couldn't see me. By now he'd caught my attention some. Remember the old movie Rear Window? I tried to figure out why he might be down there sitting, waiting. Jealous lover, jealous husband, maybe some kind of night stalker. But he wasn't bothering anybody as far as I could see. I spoke again. You never got a better look than that man sitting in the car. Around the time I got up to pee, he got out of the car, opened the door, but the inside light didn't come on. That struck me strange, it being such a nice car and all. Fueled my mind even more. I squinted my eyes to get a better look. Another long pause. And he was tall, a blonde gentleman, white fella. We don't get too many of them around here at night, or even in the daytime, for that matter. Chapter 56. Detective Patsy Hampton's investigation of the Jane Doe murders was starting to show forward movement and positive results. She thought she might have something good in the works. She had confidence in her ability to solve the murders. She knew from experience that she was smarter than everybody else. It helped to have Chief Pittman and all the department's resources on her side. She'd spent the past day and a half with Chuck Hufstedler at the FBI building. She knew she was using Chuck a little, but he didn't seem to mind. He was lonely, and she did like his company. She and Chuck were still sitting around at 3:30 in the afternoon when Lancelot entered the Gamesters chat room again. Laugh a lot, she remembered. He couldn't resist, could he? Hampton said to Hufstedler. Gotcha, you fantasy freak. Hufstedler looked at her, his thick black eyebrows arched. 3:30 in the afternoon, Patsy. What does that say? Tell you what it says to me. Maybe he's playing from work, but I bet our Lancelot is a school kid. Or he's somebody who likes to play with school kids, she offered a thought that upset her even as she uttered the words. This time she didn't try to make contact with Lancelot. She and Chuck just listened in on a stultifying discussion of several role-playing games. In the meantime, he was trying to trace Lancelot. He's pretty good at this, a real hacker. He's built a lot of security into his system. Hopefully we'll get to him anyway. I have confidence in you, Cheeseman. Lancelot stayed in the chat room past 4:30. By then it was all over. Chuck had his name and address. Michael Ormson Hutchins Place, Vauxhall. At a few minutes before 5, 2 dark blue vans pulled up in front of the Ormson house on the Georgetown Reservoir. 5 agents in blue FBI windbreakers and Detective Patsy Hampton surrounded the large Tudor-style house with an acre or two of front and back lawn and majestic views. Senior FBI agent Bridget Dwyer and Hampton proceeded to the front door and found it unlocked. With weapons drawn, they quietly entered the house and discovered Lancelot in the den. He looked to be around 13 years old, a baby geek. He was sitting at a computer in his shorts and black socks. "Hey, what the heck is going on? Hey, what are you doing in my house? I didn't do anything wrong. Who are you guys?" Michael Ormson asked in a high-pitched, peeved but quivering voice. He was skinny, his face was covered with acne. His back and shoulders had a rash that looked like eczema. Chuck Hufstetler had been right on target. Lancelot was a teenage geek playing with his fancy computer after school. He wasn't the Weasel, though. This boy couldn't be the Weasel. "Are you Michael Ormson?" Patsy Hampton asked the boy. She had lowered her weapon, but hadn't holstered it. The young boy dropped his head and looked ready to weep. Oh, God, he moaned. "Yes, I'm Michael Ormson. Who are you guys? Are you going to tell my parents?" Chapter 57. Michael's father and mother were immediately contacted at their jobs at Georgetown University Hospital and the U.S. Naval Observatory, respectively. The Ormsons were currently separated, but they both made it to Foxhall in less than 10 minutes, even with rush hour traffic starting to build. The other two Ormson children, Laura and Anna Marie, had already come home from high school. Patsy Hampton convinced the parents to let her talk to their son at the house. She told the Ormsons that they could be present and could interrupt and even stop the interview any time they wished. Otherwise, she and Agent Dwyer would have to take Michael to FBI headquarters for the interview. The Ormsons, Mark and Cindy, agreed to let Michael talk. They were clearly frightened, especially of the FBI personnel, but they seemed to trust Detective Hampton. Most people did, she knew. She was pretty and sincere and had a disarming smile that she used when she needed to. "I'm interested in the game called the Four Horsemen," Hampton said to the boy. "That's the only reason I'm here, Michael. I need your help." The teenager dropped his chin to his chest again and then shook his head back and forth. Hampton watched a nervous boy and decided to take a chance with him. She had a hunch that she wanted to play. "Michael, whatever you think you've done wrong, it's nothing to us. It's nothing. We don't care what you've done on your computer. This isn't about you or your family or your hacking. There have been some terrible murders in Washington, and there might be a connection to this game called the Four Horsemen. Please help us, Michael. You're the only one who can. You're the only one." Mark Ormson, who was a radiologist at Georgetown University Hospital, leaned forward on the black leather couch in the den. He looked more frightened now than when he'd gotten home. "I'm beginning to think I better get a lawyer," he said. Patsy Hampton shook her head and smiled kindly at both parents. "This is not about your son, Mr. and Mrs. Ormson. He's not in any trouble with us, I assure you." She turned back to the teenager. "Michael, what do you know about the Four Horsemen? We know you're not one of the players. We know it's a very private game." The boy looked up. She could tell that he liked her and maybe trusted her some. "Hardly anything, ma'am. I don't know too much." Hampton nodded. "This is very important to us, Michael. Someone is killing people in the southeast part of Washington for real, Michael. This is not a fantasy game. I think you can help us. You can save others from getting murdered." Michael dropped his head again. He had hardly looked at his mother and father since they arrived. "I'm good with computers. You probably already figured that out." Detective Hampton kept nodding, giving the boy positive reinforcement. "We know you are, Michael. We had trouble tracing you here. You're very good with computers. My friend Chuck Hufstetler at the FBI was really impressed. When all this is over, you can see where he works. You'll like him, and you'll love his equipment." Michael smiled, showing off large protruding teeth with braces. Back at the beginning of summer, probably late in June, this guy came into the Gamesters chat room where you found me. Patsy Hampton tried to hold eye contact with the boy. She needed him badly. She had a feeling that this was a big break, her biggest so far. Michael continued to speak softly. He sort of like he took over the conversation. Actually, he was pretty much a control freak about it. He kept putting down Highlander, D&D, Millennium, all the hot games that are out now. Wouldn't let anybody else get a word in. Almost seemed like he was high on something. He kept hinting about this completely different game he played called The Four Horsemen. It was like he didn't want to tell us about it, but then he would give out bits and pieces anyway. But not much. He wouldn't shut up. He said the characters in Dungeons & Dragons, Dune and Condottiere were predictable and boring, which I must admit they are sometimes. Then he said some of the characters in his game were chaotic evil instead of lawful good. He said they weren't fake heroes like in most RPGs. His characters were more like people in real life. They were basically selfish, didn't really care about others, didn't follow society's rules. He said Horseman was the ultimate fantasy game. That was all he would tell us about the Four Horsemen, but it was enough. I mean, you could see it was a game for total psychos. What was his call name? Agent Dwyer asked Michael. Call name or his real name? Michael asked, and offered up a sly, superior smile. Agent Dwyer and Hampton looked at each other. Call name or his real name? They turned back to Michael. I traced him just like you traced me. I got through his encryptions. I know his name, and I know where he lives, even where he works. It's Schaefer, Jeffrey Schaefer. He works at the British Embassy on Massachusetts Avenue. He's some kind of information analyst there, according to the embassy's website. He's 44 years old. Michael Ormson looked sheepishly around the room. He made eye contact with his parents, who finally looked relieved. Then he looked back at Hampton. Is any of that stuff helpful to you? Did I help? Yes, you did laugh a lot. Chapter 58. Jeffrey Schaefer had vowed he would not get high on pharmaceuticals tonight. He'd also decided he was going to keep his fantasies under control, under wraps. He understood precisely what the psychobabbling profiles on the murder cases would be thinking. His fantasy life was escalating, and he was approaching a rage state. And the profilers would be exactly right, which was why he was playing it cool for a while. He was a skillful cook, skilled at a lot of things, actually. He sometimes put together elaborate meals for his family, and even large dinner parties with friends. When he cooked, he liked to have the family with him in the kitchen. He loved an audience, even his wife and kids. Tonight we'll be eating classic Thai, he announced to Lucy and the children as they watched him work. He was feeling a little hyper and reminded himself not to let things get out of hand at home. Maybe he ought to take some Valium before he began to cook. All he'd taken so far was a little Xanax. What sets Thai food apart from other Southeast Asian cuisines are the explicit rules for proportions of ingredients, especially seasonings, he said, as he prepared a centerpiece of carved vegetables. Thai is a distinctive cuisine, blending Chinese, Indonesian, Indian, Portuguese, Malaysian. Bet you didn't know that, Trisha and Erica. The little girls laughed, confused, so much like their mother. He put jasmine blossoms in Lucy's hair, then a blossom each for the twins. He tried the same with Robert, but his son pulled away, laughing. Nothing too hot tonight, darling, Lucy said. The children. The children, of course, dear. Speaking of hot, The real heat comes from capsaicin, capsaicin, which is stored in the ribs of these chili peppers. Capsaicin is an irritant and burns whatever it touches, even skin, so it's wise to wear gloves. I'm not wearing gloves, of course, because I'm not wise. Also, I'm a little crazy. He laughed. Everyone did, but Lucy looked worried. Schaefer served the dinner himself without any help, and he announced the name of each dish, both in Thai and in English. I'll spell out the Thai. PLAA, finger space, MEUK, finger space, YAANG, or roast squid, delicious. MIENGK space KUM, leaf rolls with treasures, yummy. PLAA YAANG KAENG PHET, grilled snapper with red curry sauce, delectable. A little hot though. He watched them tentatively sample each course. As they tasted the snapper, tears began to run down their faces. Erica began to choke. "Daddy, it's too hot," Robert complained, gulping. Schaefer smiled and nodded blithely. He loved this, the flowing tears, his perfect little family in pain. He savored each exquisite moment of their suffering. He'd managed to turn the dinner into a tantalizing game after all. At 8:45, he kissed Lucy and started off on his constitutional, as he called his nightly disappearing act. He went out to the Jag and drove a few blocks to Phelps Place, a quiet street without many lights. He took liberal doses of Thorazine and Librium, then injected himself with Toradol. He took another Xanax. Then he went to his doctor's. Chapter 59. Schaefer didn't like the arrogant asshole doorman at Boo Cassidy's building, and they didn't like him, he decided. Who needed their approval anyway? They were shiftless, lazy incompetents, incapable of doing much more than holding open doors and offering up ingratiating smiles to fat cat tenants. "I'm here to see Dr. Cassidy," Schaefer announced to the familiar black wanker with Mal jauntily pinned on his lapel. It was probably there so that he wouldn't forget his own name. "Right," said Mal. "Isn't that right, sir?" "Right, sir. I'll ring up Dr. Cassidy. Wait right here, sir." He could hear Boo through the doorman's staticky phone receiver. She had no doubt left explicit instructions that he be let up immediately. She certainly knew he was coming. They'd talked during the car ride from his house. "You can go up now, sir," the doorman finally said. "I'm fucking her brains out, Mal," Schaefer said. He waltzed to the elevators with a grin. "You watch that door now. Don't let anyone take it." Boo was in the hallway to meet him when the elevator cruised to a stop on 10. She was wearing at least $5,000 worth of clothes from Escada. She had a great body, but she looked like a bullfighter or a marching band leader in the gaudy outfit. No wonder her first two husbands had divorced her. The second husband had been a therapist and treating MD. Still, she was a good, steady mistress who gave much better than she got. More important, she was able to get him Thorazine, Librium, Ativan, Xanax. Most of the drugs were samples from drug company representatives. Her husband had left them behind when they'd split. The number of samples left by the drug reps amazed Schaefer, but she assured him it was common practice. She had other friends who were doctors, and she hinted to Schaefer that they helped her out in return for an occasional fuck. She could get all the drugs he needed. Schaefer wanted to take her right there in the hall, and he knew Boo would like the spontaneity and the passion that were so clearly missing from her life. Not tonight, though. He had more basic needs, the drugs. "You don't look too happy to see me, Jeff," she complained. She took his face in her manicured hands. Christ, her long, varnished red nails scared him. "What happened? Darling, something's happened. Tell Boo what it is." Schaefer took her in his arms and held her tightly against his chest. She had large, soft breasts, great legs, too. He stroked her frosted blonde hair and nuzzled her with his chin. He loved the power he had over her, his dim shrink. "I don't want to talk about it just yet. I'm here with you. I feel much better already." "What happened, darling? What's wrong? You have to share these things with me." So he made up a story on the spot, acted it out. Nothing to it. "Lucy claims she knows about us. Gosh, she was paranoid before I started to see you. Lucy always threatens to destroy my life. She says she'll leave me, sue for what fucking little I have. Her father will have me fired, then blackball me in the government and in the private sector, which he's perfectly capable of doing. The worst thing is she's poisoning the children, turning them against me. They use the same belittling phrases that she uses. Colossal failure, underachiever, get a real job, Daddy. Some days I wonder whether it isn't true." Boo kissed him lightly on the forehead. No, darling, you're well thought of at the embassy. I know you're a loving dad. You just have a bitchy, mean-spirited, spoiled, rotten wife who gets you down on yourself. Don't let her do it." He knew what she wanted to hear next, so he told her. "Well, I won't have a bitchy wife for much longer. I swear I won't, Boo. I love you dearly, and I'm going to leave Lucy soon." He looked at her heavily made-up face and watched as tears formed and ruined her look. "I love you, Jeff," she whispered, and Schaefer smiled as if he were pleased to hear it. Gosh, she was so good at this. Lies, fantasies, role-playing games. He unbuttoned the front of her mauve silk blouse, fondled her, then carried her inside to the sofa. "This is my idea of therapy," he whispered hotly in Boo's ear. "This is all the therapy I need." Chapter 60. I'd been up since before 5 that morning. I had to call Inspector Patrick Busby in Bermuda. I wanted to talk to him every day, sometimes more than once, but I stopped myself. It would only make things worse, strain my relations with the local police, and signal that I didn't trust them to handle the investigation properly. "Patrick, it's Alex Cross calling from Washington. Did I catch you at a good time? Can you talk for a moment now?" I asked. I always tried to sound as upbeat as possible. I wasn't, of course. I'd been up pacing the house and already had breakfast with Nana. Then I had waited impatiently until 8:30 Bermuda time to call Busby at the station house in Hamilton. He was an efficient man, and I knew he was there every morning by 8. I could picture the thin, wiry policeman as we talked on the phone. I could see the tidy cubicle office where he worked, and superimposed over everything, I could still see Christine on her moped waving goodbye to me on that perfectly sunny afternoon. "I have a few things for you from my contact at Interpol," I said. I told him about an abduction of a woman on Jamaica earlier in the summer, and another in Barbados. Both were similar, though not identical, to Christine's disappearance. I didn't think they were connected, really, but I wanted to give him something, anything. Patrick Busby was a thoughtful and patient man. He remained silent until I had finished talking, before asking his usual quota of logical questions. I had observed that he was flawed as an interrogator because he was so polite, but at least he hadn't given up. I assume that neither abduction was ever solved, Alex. How about the women who were taken? Were they found? No, neither woman was seen again, not a sign of them. They are still missing. He sighed into the phone receiver. I hope your news is helpful in some way, Alex. I'll certainly call the other islands and check into it further. Anything else from Interpol or the FBI? I wanted to keep him on the line, the lifeline as I now thought of it. A few far-flung possibilities in the Far East. Bangkok, the Philippines, Malaysia, women abducted and murdered, all Jane Does. To be honest, nothing too promising at this point. I imagine him pursing his thin lips and nodding thoughtfully. I understand, Alex. Please keep giving me whatever you get from your sources. It's difficult for us to get help outside this small island. My calls for assistance frequently aren't returned. I sincerely wish that I had some good news for you on my end, but I'm afraid I don't. Other than Perry Graham, no one saw the man with the van. No one seems to have seen Christine Johnson in Hamilton or St. George either. It's truly a baffling mystery. I don't believe that she ever got to Hamilton. It's frustrating for us, too. My prayers are with you and your wonderful family, and of course John Sampson. I thanked Patrick Busby and hung up the phone. I went upstairs and dressed for work. I still had nothing really substantial on the murder of Frank Odenkirk, and the Jefe was contacting me daily on email. I certainly knew how the Odenkirk family felt. The media heat about the homicide had died down, though, as it often does. Unfortunately, so had the Post stories about the unsolved murders in Southeast. While I was taking a hot shower, I thought about DeWitt Luke and the mysterious watcher on S Street. What was the man in the Mercedes doing out there for so long? Did he have some connection with the murders of Tori Glover and Marion Cardinal? None of this was making complete sense to me. That was the truly maddening thing about the Jane Doe murders and the Weasel. He wasn't like other repeat killers. He wasn't a criminal genius like Gary Sinise, but he was effective. He gets the job done, doesn't he? I needed to think more about why someone had been lurking outside Tori Glover's apartment. Was he a private detective, a stalker, or was he actually the murderer? One possibility hit me. Maybe the man in the car was an accomplice of the killer. Two of them working together. I'd seen that before in North Carolina. I turned up the water, made it hotter. I thought it would help me to concentrate better, steam out the cobwebs in my brain, bring me back from the dead. Nana began banging on the pipes from downstairs in the kitchen. "Get down here and go to work, Alex. You're using up all my hot water," she yelled above the noise of the shower. "Last time I looked, my name was on the water and gas bills," I shouted back. "It's still my hot water. Always was, always will be," Nana replied. Chapter 61. Every day, every night, I was out on the streets of Southeast, working harder than ever, but with nothing much to show for it. I continued to search for the mysterious purple and blue cab, and for the late-model black Mercedes that DeWitt Luke had seen on S Street. Sometimes I felt as if I were sleepwalking, but I kept at it, sleepwalking as fast as I could. Everything about the investigation seemed a long shot at best. I received tips and leads every day that had to be followed up. None of them went anywhere, though. I got home at a little past 7 that night, and tired as I was, I still let the kids drag me downstairs for their boxing lesson. Damon was showing me a lot of hand speed and also some pretty good footwork and power for his age. He's always had good spirit, and I was confident that he wouldn't abuse his burgeoning boxing skills at school. Janny was more a student of boxing, though she seemed to recognize the value of being able to defend herself. She was quick at mastering techniques, seeing connections, even if her heart wasn't completely in the sport. She preferred to torture her brothers and me with her taunts and wit. "Alex, telephone," Nana called down from the top of the cellar stairs. I looked at my watch, saw it was 20 to 8. "Practice your footwork," I told the kids. Then I trudged up the steep stone steps. "Who is it?" "Wouldn't say who it was," Nana said as I got up to the kitchen. She was making shrimp and corn fritters, and the room was also filled with the glorious smells of honey-baked apples and gingerbread. It was a late dinner for us. Nana had waited until I got home. I picked up the phone on the kitchen counter. "Alex Cross." "I know who you are, Detective Cross." I recognized the voice immediately, though I had heard it only once before in the Belmont Hotel in Bermuda. A chill went right through me and my hand shook. "There is a payphone outside the Budget Drugs on 4th Street. She's safe for now. We have her. But hurry, hurry. Maybe she's on the payphone right now. I'm serious. Hurry." Chapter 62. I exploded out the back kitchen door without saying a word to Nana or the kids. I didn't have time to explain where I was going or why. Besides, I didn't really know exactly what was happening. Had I just spoken to the weasel? "Hurry. Maybe she's on the payphone right now. I'm serious." I sprinted across 5th Street, then down a side alley and over to 4th. I dashed another 4 blocks south toward the Anacostia River. People on the streets watched me running. I was like a tornado suddenly roaring through southeast. I could see the metal frame of a payphone from more than a block away as I approached Budget Drugs. A young girl was leaning against the graffiti-covered wall of the drugstore, talking on the phone. I pulled out my detective shield as I raced the final block toward her. This particular phone gets a lot of use. Some people in the neighborhood don't have phones in their homes. "Police, I'm a homicide detective. Get off the phone," I told the girl, who looked 19 or so. She stared at me as if she couldn't care less that a DC policeman was trying to commandeer the phone. "I'm using this phone, mister. Don't care who you are. You can wait your turn like everybody else." She turned away from me. "Probably just calling your honey." I yanked the receiver away from her and disconnected the call. "The fuck you think you are?" The girl shouted at me, her face screwed up in anger. "I was talking. The fuck you thinking?" "I'm thinking you better get out of my face. This is a life and death situation. Get away from this phone. Now. Get out of here." I could see she had no intention of leaving. "There's been a kidnapping." I was yelling like a madman. She finally backed away. She was afraid that I was really crazy, and maybe I was. I stood there with my hand on the phone receiver, trembling, waiting for the call to come in. I was winded. Sweat covered my body. I stared up and down 4th Street. Nothing obvious or suspicious. I didn't see a purple and blue cab parked anywhere. No one watching me. Somebody definitely knew who I was. He had called me at the Belmont Hotel. He had called me at home. I could still hear the caller's voice echoing loudly inside my head. I'd been haunted by the same words for weeks. She's safe now. She's safe for now. We have her. Those were the words written to me 6 weeks before in Bermuda. I hadn't heard another word from the caller until now. My heart was pounding, sounding as if it were amplified in my ears. Adrenaline was rushing like powerful rivers through my bloodstream. I couldn't stand this. The caller had stressed that I hurry. A young man approached the payphone. He stared at my hand on the receiver. "What's up, man? I need to use the phone." "The phone? You hear me?" "Police business." I gave him a hard stare. "Take a walk, please. Go." "Don't look like no police business to me," he mumbled. The man moved away. Looking over his shoulders, he retreated down Fourth, frowning, but not stopping to argue with me. The caller liked to be completely in control. I was thinking as I stood there, helpless in front of the busy drugstore. He'd made me wait this long since the Bermuda call, possibly to demonstrate his power. Now he was doing it again. What did he really want, though? Why had he taken Christine? "We have her," he'd said. And he'd repeated the very same words when he called my house. Was there really a we? What kind of group did he represent? What did they want? I stood at the payphone for 10 minutes, 15, 20. I felt as if I were going mad, but I would stay there all night if I had to. I began to wonder if this was the right phone, but I knew it was. He had been crystal clear, calm, in control. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to truly hope that Christine might be alive. I imagined her face, her deep brown eyes that showed so much love and warmth. Maybe, just maybe, I would be allowed to talk to her. I let my anger build toward the unknown caller, but then I cut it off, shut down my emotions, and waited with a cool head. People came and went, in and out of the drugstore. A few wanted to use the phone. They took one look at me and then moved on in search of another phone. At 5 minutes to 9, the phone rang. I lifted the receiver instantly. "This is Alex Cross," I said. "Yes, I know who you are." "That's already been established. Here's what you should do. Back all the way off. Just back away before you lose everything you care about. It can happen so easily in a snap. You're smart enough to understand that, aren't you?" Then the caller hung up. The line was dead. I banged the phone with the receiver. I cursed loudly. The manager from the drugstore had come outside and was staring at me. "I'm going to call the police," he said. "That's a public phone." I didn't bother to tell him that I was the police. Chapter 63. Was it the weasel who had called? Was I dealing with one killer or more than one? If only I had some idea who the caller was and who he meant by we. The message scared me just as much as the first one had, maybe even more, but it also gave me hope that Christine might still be alive. With hope came a jolting surge of pain. If only they would put Christine on the phone. I needed to hear her voice. What did they want? Back all the way off. Back off from what? The Odenkirk murder case? The Jane Does? Perhaps even Christine's disappearance? Was Interpol or the FBI getting close to something that had scared them? We weren't close to anything that could solve any of the cases, and I knew timing was critical. Early Wednesday morning, Sampson and I drove to Eckington. A woman over there knew where a purple and blue cab was garaged. We'd followed up a dozen or so leads like this already, but it didn't matter. Every lead had to be investigated, every single one. "Cab owner's name is Arthur Marshall," I told Sampson, as we walked from my car toward a red brick garden apartment that had seen better days. "Trouble is, Arthur Marshall seems to be a false identity. Landlady has him working at a Target store. According to Target, he doesn't. Never worked at any Target store. Hasn't been seen around for a while, according to the landlady." "Maybe we spooked him," Sampson said. I hope not, but you may be right. I glanced around at the lower middle-class neighborhood as we walked. Overhead, the sky was a bright blue canvas, nearly empty of clouds. The street was packed with 1- and 2-story homes. Bright orange flyers were sticking out from the mailboxes. Every window was a possible lookout for the weasel. Back away, he had warned. I couldn't, not after what he'd done. I knew I was taking a risk, though. He probably spotted us canvassing the streets. If he was responsible for the Jane Doe murders, he had been working undetected for a long while. He was skillful, good at killing, at not getting caught. The landlady told us what she knew about Arthur Marshall, which wasn't much more than the information she needed to rent him a 1-bedroom apartment and the attached garage. She gave us a set of keys for the place and said we could go look for ourselves. The second house was similar to the landlady's, except that it was painted Easter egg blue. Samson and I entered the garage first. The purple and blue cab was there. Arthur Marshall had told the landlady that he owned the cab and operated it as a part-time job. That was a possibility, but it seemed unlikely. The weasel was close. I could feel it now. Had he known we would find the cab? Probably. Now what? What came next? What was his plan, his fantasy? I'm going to have to figure out how to get some techies in here, I told Samson. There has to be something in the cab, or maybe upstairs in the apartment. Hair, fibers, prints. Hopefully no damn body parts, Samson said and grimaced. It was typical cop humor and so automatic that I didn't give it a second thought. Body parts are always popping up in these cases, Alex. I don't want to see it. I like feet attached to ankles, heads attached to necks, even if all the parts happen to be dead. Samson searched around the front seat of the cab with latex-gloved hands. Papers in here, candy and gum wrappers too. Why not call in a favor from Kyle Craig? Get the FBI boys over here. Actually, I talked to Kyle last night, I said. The Bureau's been involved for some time. He'll help out if we say the word. Samson tossed me a pair of gloves and I examined the cab's back seat. I saw what could be bloodstains in the fabric of the seat cushion. The stains would be easy enough to check out. John and I finally climbed upstairs into the apartment above the garage. It was dusty, grimy, without much furniture. Eerie and unpleasant on the eyes. It didn't look as if anyone lived there, but if someone did, it was really weird. The landlady had said as much. The kitchen was mostly empty. An expensive juicer was the only personal indulgence. Not a low-end model, expensive. I took out my handkerchief and opened the refrigerator. There was nothing in it but bottled water and some aging fruit. The fruit was rotting, and I hated to think of what else we might find here in the apartment. Health nut, Samson offered. Not anyway, I said. There's a sense of animal fear in here. He gets very tense, excited when he comes to this place. Yeah, Samson said, I know the feeling. We entered the bedroom, which was furnished with only a small cot, a couple of stuffed chairs, nothing else. The sense of fear was here too. I opened the closet door and what I saw stopped me dead. There was a pair of khaki pants, a blue chambray shirt, a blue blazer, and something else. John, come here, I called. John. Oh, shit, do I have to? Not more bodies. Just come here, it's him. This is the weasel's place, I'm sure of it. It's worse than a body. I opened the closet door wider and let Samson see what I'd found there. Shit, he groaned. Damn it, Alex. Someone had put up pictures, half a dozen black and white photographs were taped to the wall of the closet. It wasn't a killer's shrine, it was meant to be found. There were pictures of Nana, Damon, Janny, me, and Christine. Christine almost seemed to be smiling at the camera, that incredible smile of hers, those big welcoming eyes. The pictures had been taken in Bermuda. Whoever had rented this apartment had taken them. Finally, I had something to link Christine's abduction to the murders in Washington. I knew who had taken her. Back off before you lose everything. I sensed fear again. It was my own. Chapter 64. Patsy Hampton had decided that she wasn't ready to confide in Chief George Pittman just yet. She didn't want the Hefe interfering or crowding her. Also, she flat out didn't trust or like the bastard. She still hadn't made up her mind what to do about Alex Cross. Cross was a complication. The more she checked him out, the better he looked. He seemed to be a very good, dedicated detective, and she felt bad about keeping Chuck Huffstedler's information away from him. Chuck had been Cross's source first, but she'd used the techie's crush on her to gain an advantage. She didn't like herself for doing that. She drove her Jeep to the British Embassy late that afternoon. She had Jeffrey Schaefer under limited surveillance, hers. She could get more teams, but that would mean going to Pittman now. And she didn't want anyone to know what she had. She didn't want to be crowded. She had done her preliminary homework on Schaefer. He was in the security service, which meant he was British intelligence operating outside England. Most likely he was a spy working out of the embassy on Massachusetts Avenue. His reputation was okay, good, actually. His current assignment supposedly had to do with the British government's human rights program, which meant the assignment was bullshit. He lived in Kalorama, a high-rent district, one he couldn't afford on his salary. So who the hell was this Schaefer chap? Hampton sat parked in her vehicle outside the embassy on California Street. She smoked a Marlboro Light and started to think things through. She really ought to talk to Cross about where he was with his investigation. Did he know anything that could help? Maybe he was on to Schaefer too? It was almost criminal for her not to contact Cross and share what she'd gotten from Chuck E. Cheese. Pittman's dislike for Cross was well known. He considered him competition. She didn't know Cross that well, but he got too many headlines. Still, she wished she knew what Cross had in his files, and especially whether Jeffrey Schaefer had appeared on Cross's radar. There was too much freaking noise on the freaking street near the British Embassy. Workers were doing construction on the Turkish Chancellery across California Street. Hampton already had a headache. Her life was one big headache, and she wished it would stop pounding and hammering and battering and sawing. For some reason or other, there was a crowd of people swarming all over the National Mosque today. At a few minutes past 5, Schaefer got into his Jaguar in a parking lot outside the glass-walled rotunda. She'd seen him twice before. He was in very good shape and attractive too, though not a physical type she herself responded to. Schaefer sure didn't hang around long after the workday ended. Hampton figured he either had someplace to go or really hated his day job, possibly both. She stayed a safe distance behind the black Jag, following it along crowded Massachusetts Avenue. Schaefer didn't seem to be heading home, and he wasn't going to Southeast either. Where are we going tonight, she wondered as she tailed him, and what does it have to do with the Four Horsemen? What game are you really playing? What are your fantasies? Are you a bad man, a murderer, Jeffrey? You don't look like it, Blondie. Such a nice, spiffy car for a scumbag killer. Chapter 65. After work, Jeffrey Schaefer joined the clogged artery of rush hour traffic, inching along Massachusetts. Turning out of the embassy, he had spotted the black Jeep behind him. The tail was still there as he drove down Massachusetts Avenue. Who's in the Jeep? One of the other players, DC Police, Detective Alex Cross. They found the garage in Eckington. Now they found me. It has to be the bloody police. He watched the black Jeep as it trailed 4 cars behind him. There was only one person inside, and it looked like a woman. Could it possibly be Lucy? Had she discovered the truth about him? Gosh, had she finally figured out who and what he was? He picked up his mobile phone and made a call home. Lucy picked up after a couple of rings. Darling, I'm coming home after all. There's a bit of a lull at the office. We can order in or something, unless you and the children already have plans. She blathered on in her usual maddening way. She and the twins had been going to catch a movie, Ants, but they'd rather stay home with him. They could order from Pizza Hut. It would be fun for a change. Yes, what fun, Schaefer said, and cringed at the thought. Pizza Hut served indigestible cardboard drenched with very bad tomato soup. He hung up, then took a couple of Vicodin and a Xanax. He thought he could feel cracks slowly opening up in his skull. He made a dangerous U-turn on Massachusetts Avenue and headed toward home. He passed a Jeep going in the opposite direction and was tempted to wave. A woman driver. Now, who was she? The pizza got to the house at around 7, and Schaefer opened an expensive bottle of Cabernet. He washed down another Xanax with the wine in the downstairs bathroom. Felt a little confused, fuzzy around the edges. That was all right, he supposed. Jesus Christ, he couldn't stand being with his family, though. He felt as if he were going to crawl out of his skin. Ever since he was a boy in England, he'd had a repetitive fantasy that he was actually a reptile and could shed his own skin. He'd had the dream long before he read any Kafka. He still had the disturbing dream. He rolled 3 dice in his hand as he sipped his wine, played the game at the dinner table. If the number 17 came up, he would murder them all tonight. He swore he would do it. First the twins, then Robert, and then Lucy. She kept prattling on and on about her day. He smiled blithely as she told him about her shopping trip to Bloomingdale's and Bath & Body Works and Bruno Cipriani at the mall. Cipriani. He considered the supreme irony of his taking truckloads of antidepressants and only becoming more depressed. Jesus, he was cycling down again. How low could he go? Come 17, he finally said aloud. What, darling? Lucy suddenly asked. Did you just say something? He's already playing tonight's game, said Robert, and snickered. Right, Daddy, it's your fantasy game, am I right? Right, son, Schaefer replied, thinking, Christ, I am mad. He let the dice gently fall on the dinner table, though he would kill them if their number came up. The dice rolled over and over, then banked off the greasy pizza box. Daddy and his games, Lucy said and laughed. Erica and Tricia laughed. Robert laughed. 6, 5, 1, he counted. Damn. Are the two of us going to play tonight? Robert asked. Schaefer forced a smile. Not tonight, Rob boy. I'd like to, but I can't. I have to go out again. Chapter 66. This was getting very interesting. Patsy Hampton watched Schaefer leave the large and expensive house in Kalorama at around 8:30. He was off on another of his nightly jaunts. The guy was a regular vampire. She knew that Cross and his friends called the killer the Weasel, and it certainly fit Schaefer. There was something uncomfortable about him, something bent. She followed the black Jag, but he didn't head toward southeast, which disappointed her. He drove to a trendy supermarket, Sutton on the Run, just off DuPont Circle. Hampton knew the pricey store and called it Why Pay Less. He parked the sports car illegally, then jogged inside. Diplomatic immunity. That pissed her the hell off. What a weasel he was. Real Eurotrash. While he was in the market, Hampton made a command decision. She was pretty sure she was going to talk to Alex Cross. She had thought a lot about it, the pros and cons. Now she figured that she might be endangering lives in Southeast by not sharing at least some of what she knew. If someone died, she wouldn't be able to bear it. Besides, Cross would have gotten the information if she hadn't interceded with Chuck Hufstedler. Schaefer shuffled back out of Sutton on the Run and glanced around crowded DuPont Circle. He had a small bag of overpriced groceries clutched in one arm. Groceries for whom, though? He didn't look in the direction of her Jeep, which was just peeking around the corner. She followed the black Jag at a safe distance in the light traffic. He got onto Connecticut Avenue. She didn't think he'd spotted her, though he was an MI6 man, so she needed to be careful. Schaefer wasn't far from Embassy Row. He wouldn't be going back to work now, would he? Why the groceries if he was headed to the embassy? The Jaguar eventually turned into the underground garage of a pre-war building in Woodley Park. The Farragut was engraved on a brass sign in front. Patsy Hampton waited a few minutes, then pulled into the garage behind the Jag. She needed to look around, check things out if she could. The garage was public-private, so it wasn't any big deal. She walked over to the attendant in the small kiosk and identified herself. "The Jag that came in before me, ever seen it here before?" she asked. The man nodded. He was around her age, and she could tell he wanted to impress her if he could. "Sure. I don't know him to talk to, though. Comes here to visit a lady on 10. Dr. Elizabeth Cassidy. She's a shrink. I assume he's a patient. He's got a funny look in his eyes," the attendant said. "But so do most people." "How about me?" Hampton asked. "Nah, well, maybe a little," the attendant said and grinned. Schaefer stayed upstairs with Dr. Cassidy for nearly 2 hours. Then he came down and went straight back to the house in Kalorama. Patsy Hampton followed him, then watched the house for another half hour. She thought that Schaefer was probably in for the night. She drove to a nearby diner, but didn't go inside right away. She picked up her mobile phone before she had too many second thoughts. She knew across the street and got the phone number through information. Was it too late to call? Screw it, she was going through with this. She was surprised when the phone was picked up on the first ring. She heard a pleasant male voice, nice, strong. "Hello, Alex Cross." She almost hung up on him. Interesting that he'd intimidated her for a moment. "This is Detective Patsy Hampton. I've been doing some work on the Jane Does. I've been following a man who is a suspect. I think we should talk." "Where are you, Patsy?" Cross said without hesitation. "I'll come to you. Just tell me where." "I'm at the City Limits Diner on Connecticut Avenue." "I'm on my way," said Cross. Chapter 67. I wasn't totally surprised that Pittman had assigned someone to the Jane Does, especially after Zach Taylor's article in the Washington Post. I was interested in any leads Detective Hampton might have turned up. I'd seen Patsy Hampton around, and she obviously knew who I was. She was supposed to be on a fast track. She was a smart and effective senior homicide detective. though from what I'd heard, she was also a lone wolf. She didn't have any friends in the department as far as I knew. She was much prettier than I remembered. She was in very trim, athletic shape, probably early 30s, short blonde hair, piercing blue eyes that cut through the diner haze. She'd put on bright red lipstick for our meeting, or maybe she wore it all the time. I wondered what was on her mind and what her motives were. I didn't think I could trust her. "You or me first?" Detective Hampton asked, after we'd ordered coffee. We were seated at a table in the City Limits Diner near a window looking out on Connecticut Avenue. "I'm afraid I don't know what this is about," I told her. She sipped her coffee and gave me a look over the cup's rim. She was a strong-willed, confident person. Her eyes told me that much. "You really didn't know someone else was working the Jane Does?" I shook my head. "Pittman said that the cases were closed. I took him at his word. He suspended some good detectives for working the cases after hours." "There's a lot of seriously nasty crap going on in the department." "So what's new, though?" she said as she set down her cup. She gave a deep sigh. "I thought I could deal with it by myself. Now I'm not so sure." "Pittman assigned you to the Jane Does personally?" She nodded, then her blue eyes narrowed. "He assigned me to the Glover and Cardinal murders, and any others I wanted to look into. Gave me free rein." "And you say you have something?" "Maybe. I've got a possible suspect. He's involved in a role-playing game that features victims being murdered, mostly in Southeast. It's all after-the-fact stuff, so he could have read the news stories and then fantasized about them. He works at the British Embassy." This was a new piece of information, and it surprised him. "How far have you gone with this?" "Not to Pittman, if that's what you mean. I've done a little discreet checking on the suspect. Trouble is, he seems to be a solid citizen, very good at his job, supposedly. At least that's the official word from the embassy. Nice family in Kalorama. I've been watching Schaefer a little, hoping I'd get lucky. His first name is Jeffrey." I knew that she was supposed to be a little bit of a loose cannon and that she didn't suffer fools gladly. "You're out here alone tonight?" I asked her. Hampton shrugged. "That's how I usually operate. Partners slow me down. Chief Pittman knows how I like to work. He gave me the green light. All green, all day long." I knew she was waiting for me to give her something, if I had anything. I decided to play along. "We found a cab that the killer apparently used in Southeast. He kept it in a garage in Eckington." "Anybody see the suspect in the neighborhood?" She asked the right first question. "The landlady saw him. I'd like to show her pictures of your guy. Or do you want to do it yourself?" Her face was impassive. "I'll do it, first thing in the morning." "Anything revealing in the apartment?" I wanted to be straight with her. She'd initiated the meeting, after all. Photographs of me and my family covered a wall in a closet. They were taken of us in Bermuda while we were on vacation. He was there watching us all the time. Hampton's face softened. "I heard your fiancé disappeared in Bermuda. Word gets around." "There were photographs of Christine too," I said. Her blue eyes became sad. I got a quick look behind her tough facade. "I'm really sorry about your loss." "I haven't given up yet," I told her. "Listen, I don't want any credit for solving these cases. Just let me help. He called me at home last night. Somebody did. Told me to back off. I assume that he meant this investigation, but I'm not supposed to be on it. If Pittman hears about us..." Detective Hampton interrupted me. "Let me think about everything you've said. You know that Pittman will totally crucify me if he finds out. You have no idea. Trouble is, I don't trust him. Hampton's gaze was intense and direct. Don't mention any of this to your buddies or Samson. You never know. Just let me sleep on it. I'll try to do the right thing. I'm not such a hard ass, really, just a little weird, you know? Aren't we all? I said, and smiled. Hampton was a tough detective, but I felt okay about her. I took something out of my pocket, a beeper. Keep this. If you get in trouble or get another lead, you can beat me anytime. If you find something out, please let me know. I'll do the same. If Schaefer's the one, I want to talk to him before we bring him in. This is personal for me. You can't imagine how personal. Hampton continued to make eye contact, studying me. She reminded me of someone I'd known a while back, another complicated woman cop named Jessie Flanagan. I'll think about it. I'll let you know. All right, thanks for calling me in on this. She stood. You're not in on it yet. Like I said, I'll let you know. Then she touched my hand. I really am sorry about your friend. Chapter 68. We both knew I was in, though. We'd made some kind of deal in the city limits diner. I just hoped I wasn't being set up by Hampton and Pittman or heaven knows who else. Over the next 2 days, we talked 4 times. I still wasn't sure that I could trust her, but I didn't have a choice. I had to keep moving forward. She'd already visited the landlady who'd rented out the apartment and garage in Eckington. The landlady hadn't recognized the pictures of Schaefer. Possibly he'd worn a disguise when he met with her. If Patsy Hampton was setting me up, she was one of the best liars I'd met, and I've known some good ones. During one of our calls, she confessed that Chuck Hufstedler had been her source and that she'd gotten him to keep the information from me. I shrugged it off. I didn't have the time or the energy to be angry at either of them. In the meantime, I spent a lot of time at home. I didn't believe the killer would come after my family. Not when he already had Christine, but I couldn't tell that for sure. When I wasn't there, I made sure Samson or somebody else was checking on the house. On the 3rd night after I met her, Patsy Hampton and I had a breakthrough of sorts. She actually invited me to join her on her stakeout of Schaefer's townhouse in Kalorama Heights. He'd arrived home from work before 6 and remained there until just past 9. He had a nice-looking expat family, 3 children, a wife, a nanny. He lived very well. Nothing about his life or surroundings suggested that he might be a killer. He seems to go out every night around this time, Hampton told me as we watched him walk to a shiny black Jag parked in a gravel driveway at the side of the house. Creature of habit, I said. A weasel. Creature, anyway, she said. We both smiled. The ice was breaking up a little between us. She admitted that she had checked me out thoroughly. She decided that Chief Pittman was the bad guy in all of this, not me. The Jaguar pulled out of the drive, and we followed Schaefer to a night spot in Georgetown. He didn't seem to be aware of us. The problem was that we had to catch him doing something. We had to catch him doing something. We had no concrete evidence that he was our killer. Schaefer sat by himself at the bar, and we watched him from the street. Did he perch by the window on purpose, I wondered? Did he know we were watching? Was he playing with us? I had a bad feeling that he was. This was all some kind of bizarre game to him. He left the bar around 11:45 and returned home just past midnight. Bastard, Patsy grimaced and shook her head. Her blonde hair was soft and had a nice bounce to it. She definitely reminded me of Jessie Flanagan, a Secret Service agent I'd worked with on the kidnapping of 2 children in Georgetown. He's in for the night? I asked. What was that all about? He leaves the house to watch the Orioles baseball game at a bar in Georgetown. That's how it's been the last few nights. I think he knows we're out here. He's an intelligence officer. He knows surveillance. We also know he likes to play fantasy games. At any rate, he's home for the night, so I'm going home too, Patsy. I don't like leaving my family alone too long. Good night, Alex. Thanks for the help. We'll get him. And maybe we'll find your friend soon. I hope so. On the drive home, I thought a little about Detective Patsy Hampton. She struck me as a lonely person, and I wondered why. She was thoughtful and interesting when she got past her tough facade. I wondered if anyone could ever really get through that facade, though. There was a light on in our kitchen when I rolled into the driveway. I strolled around to the back door and saw Damon and Anna in their bathrobes at the stove. Everything seemed all right. Am I breaking up a pajama party? I asked as I eased in through the back door. Damon has an upset stomach. I heard him in the kitchen, so I came out to get in his way. I'm all right. I just couldn't sleep. I saw you were still out, he said. It's after midnight. He looked worried and also a little sad. Damon had really liked Christine, and he told me a couple of times that he was looking forward to having a mom again. He'd already begun to think of her that way. He and Johnny missed Christine a whole lot. Twice now they'd had important women taken away from them. I was working a little late, that's all. It's a very complicated case, Damon, but I think I'm making progress, I said. I went to the cabinet and took out 2 tea bags. I'll make you tea, Nana offered. I can do it, I said. But she reached for the bags and I let her take them away from me. Doesn't pay to argue with Nana, especially not in her kitchen. You want some tea and milk, big guy? I asked Damon. All right, he said. He pronounced "aight," as they do at the playgrounds and probably even at the Sojourner Truth School. You sound like that poor excuse for an NBA point guard, Allen Iverson, Nana said to him. She didn't much like street slang, never had. She'd started off as an English teacher and never lost her love of books and language. She loved Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Maya Angelou, and also Oprah Winfrey for bringing their books to a wider audience. He's the fastest guard in the league, Grandma Moses. Shows what you know about basketball, said Damon. You probably think Magic Johnson is still playing in the league, and Wilt Chamberlain. I like Marbury with the Timberwolves and Stoudemire with Portland, formerly with Toronto, Nana said, and gave a triumphant little smile. Aight. Damon laughed. Nana probably knew more about NBA point guards than either of us. She'd always get you if she wanted to. We sat at the kitchen table and drank tea with milk and too much sugar, and we were mostly quiet, but it was kind of nice. I love family, always have. Everything that I am flows from that. Damon yawned and got up from the table. He went to the sink and rinsed out his cup. I can probably sleep now, he reported to us. Give it a try anyway. He came back to the table and gave Nana and me a kiss before he went back upstairs to bed. You miss her, don't you? He whispered against my cheek. Of course I miss Christine, I said to Damon. All the time. Every waking minute. I didn't make mention of the fact that I had been out late because I was observing the son of a bitch who might have abducted her. Nor did I say anything about the other detective on surveillance, Patsy Hampton. When Damon left, Nana put her hand in mine, and we sat like that for a few minutes before I went up to bed. I miss her too, Nana finally said. I'm praying for you both, Alex. Chapter 69. The next evening at around 6, I took off early from work and went to Damon's choir practice at the Sojourner Truth School. I'd put together a good-sized file on Jeffrey Schaefer, but didn't have anything that concretely linked him to any of the murders. Neither did Patsy Hampton. Maybe he was just a fantasy game player, or maybe the weasel was just being more careful since his taxi had been found. It tore me up to go to the true school, but I had to go. I realized how hard it must be for Damon and Johnny to go there every day. The school brought back too many memories of Christine. It was as if I were suffocating, all the breath being squeezed out of my lungs. At the same time, I was in a cold sweat that coated the back of my neck and my forehead. A little while after the practice began, Johnny quietly reached over and took my hand. I heard her sigh softly. We were all doing a lot more touching and emoting since Bermuda, and I don't think we have ever been closer as a family. She and I held hands through most of the choir practice, which included the Welsh folk song All Through the Night, Bach's My Heart Ever Faithful Sing Praises, and a very special arrangement of the spiritual O Fix Me. I kept imagining that Christine would suddenly appear at the school, and once or twice I actually turned back toward the archway that led to her office. Of course, she wasn't there, which filled me with inconsolable sadness and the deepest emptiness. I finally cleared my mind of all thought, just shut down and let my whole self be the music, the glorious sound of the boys' voices. After we got home from the choir practice, Patsy Hampton checked in with me from her surveillance post. It was a little past 8. Nana and the kids were putting out cold chicken, slices of pears and apples, cheddar cheese, a salad of endive and bib lettuce. Schaefer was still home, and of all things, a children's birthday party was going on there. Patsy reported lots of smiling kids from the neighborhood, plus a rent-a-clown called Silly Billy. Maybe we're on the wrong track here, Alex. I don't think so. I think our instincts are right about him. I told her I would come over at around 9 to keep her company. That was the time when Schaefer usually left the house. Just past 8:30, the phone in the kitchen rang again as we were digging into the cold, well-spiced, delicious chicken. Nana frowned as I picked up the phone. I recognized the voice. I told you to back off, didn't I? Now you have to pay some consequences for disobeying. It's your fault. There's a payphone at the old monkey house at the National Zoo. The zoo closes at 8, but you can get in through the gardening staff gate. Maybe Christine Johnson is there at the zoo waiting for you. You better get over there quick and find out. Run, Cross, run, hurry. We have her. The caller hung up, and I charged upstairs for my Glock. I called Patsy Hampton and told her I'd gotten another call, presumably from the weasel. I'd be at the National Zoo. Schaefer's still at his kid's birthday party, she told me. Of course, he could have called from the house. I can see Silly Billy's truck from where I'm parked. Keep in contact with me, Patsy. Phones and beepers. Beeper for emergencies only. Be careful with him. Okay, I'm fine here, Alex. Silly Billy doesn't pose too much of a threat. Nothing will happen at his house. Go to the zoo, Alex. You be careful. Chapter 70. I was at the National Zoo by 10 to 9. I was thinking that the zoo was actually pretty close to Dr. Cassidy's apartment at the Farragut. Was it just a coincidence that I was so close to Schaefer's shrink? I didn't believe in coincidences anymore. I called Patsy Hampton before I left the car, but she didn't pick up this time. I didn't beep her. This wasn't an emergency. Not so far. I knew the zoo from lots of visits with Damon and Johnny, but even better from when I was a boy and Nana used to bring me, and sometimes Samson, who was nearly 6 feet tall by the time he was 11. The main entrance to the zoo was at the corner of Connecticut and Hawthorne Avenues, but the old monkey house was nearly a mile diagonally across the grounds from there. No one seemed to be around, but the gardening staff gate was unlatched, as the caller had said it would be. He knew the zoo, too. More games. I kept thinking he'd definitely love to play. As I hurried into the park, a steep horizon of trees and hills blocked out the lights of the surrounding city. There was only an occasional footlamp for light, and it was eerie and frightening to be in there alone. Of course, I was sure I wasn't alone. The monkey house was farther inside the gates than I remembered. I finally located it in the dark. It looked like an old Victorian railway station. Across a cobblestone circle there was a more modern structure that I knew was the reptile house. A sign over the twin doors of the old monkey house read, "Warning, quarantine, do not enter." More eeriness. I tried the tall twin doors, but they were securely locked. On the wall beside the doors, I saw a faded blue and white sign, the international pictograph indicating there was a phone inside. Is that the phone he wants me to use? I shook the doors, which were old and wooden and rattled loudly. Inside, I could hear monkeys starting to scream and act out. First the smaller primates, spider monkeys, chimpanzees, gibbons, then the deeper grunt of a gorilla. I caught sight of a dim red glow across the cobblestone circle. Another payphone was over there. I hurried across the square. Checked my watch. It was 2 minutes past 9. He kept me waiting last time. I thought about his game playing. Was this all a role-playing game to him? How did he win? Lose? I worried that I wasn't at the right phone. I didn't see any others, but there was always one locked inside the old monkey house. Is that the phone he wants me to use? I felt frantic and hyper. So many dangerous emotions were building up inside me. I heard a long, sustained noise, like the sound of a football crowd at the opening kickoff. It startled me until I realized it was the apes in the monkey house. Was something wrong in there? An intruder? Something or someone near the phone? I waited another 5 minutes, and then it dragged on to 10 minutes. It was driving me crazy. I almost couldn't bear it any longer, and I thought about beeping Patsy. Then my beeper went off and I jumped. It was Patsy. It had to be an emergency. I stared at the silent payphone. I waited a half minute or so. Then I snatched it up. I called the beeper number and left the number of the payphone. I waited some more. Patsy didn't call me back. Neither did the mysterious caller. I was in a sweat. I had to make a decision now. I was caught in a very bad place. My head was starting to reel. Suddenly the phone rang. I grabbed at it, almost dropped the receiver. My heart was pounding like a bass drum. "We have her." "Where?" I yelled into the receiver. "She's at the Farragut, of course." The weasel hung up. He never said she was safe. Chapter 71. I couldn't imagine why Christine would be at the Farragut in Washington, but he'd said she was there. Why would he do that if she wasn't? What was he doing to me? To her? I ran toward where I thought Cathedral Avenue was located, but it was very dark in the zoo, almost pitch black. My vision was tunneling, maybe because I was close to being in shock. I couldn't think straight. My mind in a haze, I tripped over a dark slab of rock. I went down on one knee. I cut my hands, tore my pants. Then I was up again, running through thick, high bushes that grabbed and ripped at my face and arms. Animals all around the zoo howled, moaned, bellowed insanely. They sensed that something was wrong. I could make out the sounds of grizzlies and elephant seals. I realized that I had to be approaching Arctic Circle, but I couldn't remember where it was in relation to the rest of the zoo or the city streets. Up ahead was a high Gibraltar-like rock. I clambered up it to try to get my bearings. Down below I saw a cluster of cages, shuttered gift stores and snack bars, 2 large velds. I knew where I was now. I hurriedly climbed back down the rock and started to run again. Christine was at the Farragut. Would I finally find her? Could it actually be happening? I passed African Alley, then the Cheetah Conservation Station. I came to a vast field with what looked like large haystacks scattered everywhere. I realized that they were bison. I was somewhere near Great Plains Way. The beeper in my pocket went off again. Patsy, an emergency. Where is she? Why didn't she call back at the payphone number I gave her? I was soaked in sweat and almost hyperventilating. Thank goodness I could now see Cathedral Avenue, then Woodley Road up ahead. I was a long way from where I'd parked my car, but I was close to the Farragut apartment building. I ran another 100 yards in the dark, then climbed the stone wall separating the zoo from the city streets. There was blood smeared on my hands, and I didn't know where it had come from. The knee I'd scraped, scratches from swinging branches. I could hear the loud wail of sirens in the near distance. Was it coming from the Farragut? I headed there in a sprint. It was a little past 10 o'clock. Over an hour had already gone by since the call to my house. The beeper was buzzing inside my shirt pocket. Chapter 72. Something bad had happened at the Farragut. The burping screams of approaching sirens were getting louder as I raced down Woodley. I was reeling, feeling dizzy. I couldn't focus my mind, and I realized that for one of the few times in recent years, I was close to panic. Neither the police nor the EMS had arrived at the apartment building yet. I was going to be the first on the scene. 2 doormen and several tenants in bathrobes were clustered in front of the underground garage entrance. It couldn't be Christine, it just couldn't be. I raced across a quadrant of lawn toward them. Was the weasel here at the Farragut? They saw me coming and looked as frightened as I felt inside. I must have been quite a sight. I remembered that I'd fallen once or twice inside the zoo. I probably looked like a madman, maybe even like a killer. There was blood on my hands, and who knew where else? I reached for my wallet, shook it open to expose my detective shield. Police, what's happened here? I shouted. I'm a police detective. My name is Alex Cross. Somebody has been murdered, detective, one of the doormen finally said. This way, please. I followed the doorman down the steeply sloped concrete driveway leading into the garage. It's a woman, he said. I'm pretty sure she's gone. I called 911. Oh, God. I gasped out loud. My stomach clutched. Patsy Hampton's Jeep was tucked back in a corner space. The door of the Jeep was open and lights spilled outside. I felt terrible fear, pain, and shock as I hurried around the door. Patsy Hampton was sprawled across the front seat. I could tell she was probably dead. We have her. This was what the message meant. Jesus, God, no. They murdered Patsy Hampton. They told me to back off. For gosh sakes, no. Her bare legs were twisted and pinned under the steering wheel. Her upper body was crumpled over at almost a right angle. Patsy's head was thrown back and lay partly off the seat on the passenger's side. Her blonde hair was matted with blood. Her vacant blue eyes stared up at me. Patsy was wearing a white knit sport shirt. There were deep lacerations around her throat. Bright red blood was still oozing from the wound. She was naked below the waist. I didn't see any other clothes anywhere. She might have been raped. I suspected that she'd been strangled with some kind of wire and that she'd been dead for only a few minutes. A rope or garrote had been used in some of the Jane Doe murders. The weasel liked to use his hands to work close to his victims, possibly to watch and feel their pain, maybe even while he was sexually assaulting them. I saw what looked like paint chips around the deep, ugly neck wounds. Paint chips? Something else seemed very strange to me. The Jeep's radio had been partly dislodged but left behind. I didn't understand why the radio had been tampered with, but it didn't seem important right now. I leaned back out of the Jeep. Is anyone else hurt? Have you checked? The doorman shook his head. No, I don't think so. I'll go look. Sirens finally screeched inside the garage. I saw red and blue lights flashing and whirling against the ceiling and walls. Some of the tenants had made it into the garage as well. Why did they have to come and gape at this terrible crime? A very bad thought flashed in my head. I climbed out of the Jeep, grabbing Patsy's keys. Out of the ignition, I hurried around to the back. I pushed the release and the rear door came open. My heart was thundering again. I didn't want to look inside, but when I did, there was nothing. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. We have her. Is Christine here too? Where? I looked around the garage. Up near the entrance, I spotted Jeffrey Schaefer's sport car, the black Jaguar. He was here at the Farragut. Patsy must have followed him. I ran across the garage to the Jag. I felt the hood, then the exhaust pipe. Both were still warm. The car hadn't been in the garage very long. The doors were locked. I couldn't break in. I was all too aware of the search and seizure constraints. I stared inside the Jaguar. On the back seat, I could see dress shirts on wire hangers. The hangers were white, and I thought of the chips in Detective Hampton's wounds. Had he strangled her with a hanger? Was Schaefer the weasel? Was he still in the building? What about Christine? Was she here too? I said a few words to the patrolmen who just arrived, the first on the scene after me. Then I took them with me. The helpful doorman told me which floor Schaefer's therapist's apartment was on. The number was 10D, the penthouse. Like all buildings in D.C., the Farragut was restricted to a height no greater than that of the Capitol Dome. I took the elevator with the two uniformed cops, both in their 20s, and both scared shitless, I'd bet. I was close to rage. I knew I had to be careful. I had to act professionally to control my emotions somehow. If there was an arrest, there would be questions to answer, such as what I was doing here in the first place. Pittman would be on my case in a second. I talked to the policeman on the way up, more to calm myself than anything else. You okay, detective? One of them asked me. I'm fine, I'm alright. The killer might still be in the building. The victim was a detective, one of our own. She was on surveillance here. The suspect has a relationship with the woman upstairs. The faces of both young cops tightened. It was bad enough to have seen the murdered woman in her car, but to learn that she was a policewoman, a detective on surveillance, made it worse. Now they were about to confront a cop killer. We hurried out of the elevator to apartment 10D. I led the way and pressed the bell. I saw what appeared to be drops of blood on the hallway carpet near the door. I noticed the blood in my hand, saw the two cops staring at the blood. No answer from inside the apartment, so I pounded my fist on the door. Was everyone okay in there? Police, open up! DC police! I could hear a woman shouting inside. I had my Glock out, safety off. I was angry enough to kill Schaefer. I didn't know if I could hold myself back. The uniformed patrolmen took their pistols out of their holsters too. After just a few seconds, I was ready to kick down the door, search and seizure constraints or no. I kept seeing Patsy Hampton's face, her dead, vacant eyes, these savage wounds in her crushed throat. Finally, the door of the apartment slowly opened. A blonde woman was standing there, Dr. Cassidy, I assumed. She wore an expensive-looking light blue suit with lots of gold buttons, but she was barefoot. She looked frightened and angry. "What do you want?" she demanded. "What the hell is going on here? Do you know what you've done? You've interrupted a therapy session." Chapter 73. Jeffrey Schaefer stepped into the doorway and stood a few feet behind his irate therapist. He was tall and imposing and very blond. "He's the weasel, isn't he?" "What the hell's the problem here? Who are you, sir, and what do you want?" he asked in a clipped English accent. "There's been a murder," I said. "I'm Detective Cross." I showed them my badge. I kept looking past Schaefer and Dr. Cassidy, trying to spot something that would give me probable cause to come inside the apartment. There were lots of plants on the sills and hanging in windows: philodendron, azalea, English ivy, dirty rugs, and light pastels over stuffed furniture. "No, there's certainly no murderer here," the therapist said. "Leave this instant." "You should do as the lady says," Schaefer said. Schaefer didn't look like a murderer. He was dressed in a navy suit, a white shirt, a moire tie, a pocket square, impeccable taste, completely unruffled and unafraid. Then I glanced down at his shoes. I almost couldn't believe it. The gods had finally smiled on me. I pointed my Glock at Schaefer, at the weasel. I went up to him and bent down on one knee. My whole body was trembling. I examined the right leg of his trousers. "What the hell are you doing?" he asked, pulling away from me. "This is completely absurd." "I'm with the British Embassy," Schaefer then stated. "I repeat, I'm with the British Embassy. You have no rights here." "Officers," I called to the two patrolmen who were still outside the door. I tried to act calm, but I wasn't. "Come here and look. You see this?" Both patrolmen moved closer to Schaefer. They entered the living room. "Stay out of this apartment!" The therapist raised her voice close to a scream. "Remove your trousers," I said to Schaefer. "You're under arrest." Schaefer lifted his leg and gave a look. He saw a dark stain, Patsy Hampton's blood, smudged on the cuff of his trousers. Fear shot through his eyes and he lost his cool. "You put that there! You did it!" he yelled at me. He pulled out an identification badge. "I am an official at the British Embassy. I don't have to put up with this outrage. I have diplomatic immunity. I will not take off my trousers for you. Call the embassy immediately. I demand diplomatic immunity." "Get out of here now!" Dr. Cassidy yelled loudly. Then she pushed one of the patrolmen. It was just what Schaefer needed. He broke free and ran back through the living room. He rushed into the first door down the hallway, slammed the door, and locked it. The weasel was trying to get away. It couldn't happen. I couldn't let it. I got to the door seconds behind him. "Come out of there, Schaefer. You're under arrest for the murder of Detective Patsy Hampton." Dr. Cassidy came screaming down the hall after me. I heard the toilet flush in the bathroom. "No, no, no!" I reared back powerfully and kicked in the door. Schaefer was pulling off his trousers, standing on one leg. I tackled him hard, knocked him over, then held him face down against the tile floor. He screamed curses at me, flailed his arms, bucked his lower body. I pushed his face harder into the floor. The therapist tried to pull me off Schaefer. She was scratching my face, pounding my back with her fists. It took both policemen to restrain her. "You can't do this to me!" Schaefer was yelling at the top of his voice, twisting and turning beneath me. A powerful stallion of a man. "This is illegal. I have diplomatic immunity." I turned to one of the officers. "Cuff him."